back vibe, baby.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe. And today I'm really excited to have my guest, Shanna C. Shanna's been sober since October 13th, 2008. She's been married for 25 years to the love of her life, a retired military pilot who now flies commercially. And he's the reason she sought recovery. Together, they've raised two incredible sons, both now in college, and their family is complete with Bailey, their energetic miniature schnauzer. That was good on the pronunciation. Her recovery is deeply rooted in service. She's an active member of the Saturday morning Big Book study at Park 40 in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she sponsors women, holds a service position, and keeps her spiritual foundation strong. Shanna has walked the 12 steps, experienced a life-changing spiritual awakening, and continues to live in steps 10, 11, and 12. Her story is one of faith, family, and freedom that comes from choosing recovery every day. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hi, Shanna. How are you?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
I'm so grateful that you decided to join me today. So what was it like growing up, Shanna?
Oh, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of
And
course.
growing up was not easy, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. I'm Shanna, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic since October 13th of 2008. And where to begin? I grew up just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. I come from a long line of divorce. um, and my mom, well, my poor mom, she was married 10 times to 8 different people. She married a couple of people twice. By the time she was on her 6th marriage, um, that's when I came along. And I have a brother who's 11 years older than me, and I have a sister who is 2.5 years younger than me. And I am the product of her 6th husband. And from the time I was born until I was 19 years old, I had 4 father figures. So anyway, it was kind of wild. I just thought it was normal. I didn't know. I don't know how she did it because I've been married one time, and I'm like, oh my God. And I separated from him in 2010, and then we ended up getting back together because of this amazing God I found in AA and recovery and everything else. That was the most horrific thing I ever went through in my life. I can't imagine going through that so many times. But anyway, like I said, growing up wasn't easy. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't the best. Like so many other people, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like I fit in. We've heard that a million times. At least I don't know. I have, and I identify. That's one of the things that helped me identify with the what is called the spiritual malady that so many of us alcoholics and drug addicts suffer from. Is no matter where I am, I don't belong. I can be in a room full of people and feel like I do not belong, surrounded by people who love and care about me, but I can't take it in. I don't know how. And so it was like that growing up. I didn't fit in. I had, I'm a tall person. So I was taller than all the girls and taller than all the boys growing up. I struggled a lot with my appearance and how I looked, and was made fun of a lot and picked on a lot by especially teachers and well, not necessarily teachers. One teacher in particular name calling was ridiculous. It was every day, every day. In sixth grade, I wanted to die. I mean, and I wasn't the only one that he actually treated terribly, sadly enough. Um, but it did have an effect on me. I would be lying if I didn't um, share that and share that it did have an effect on me. But I will say, though, it did have an effect on me. I don't, looking back now, it wasn't what actually made me alcoholic. And the reason I can say that is there are so many people that I know that never went through the kind of things that I went through as a kid. My dad, if anyone was an alcoholic, in my family, it was my dad. Found that out later on. And then I found out later on too that my mom probably was too, but neither one of them are around today for me to ask. So I hate to just label them, but just from based on what I've heard other people say about them, it seems that though, they may have had what I have. But anyway, my dad was abusive at times, and mom doing what the things that she did and whatever. None of that stuff made me alcoholic. Now, it made me probably neurotic. I didn't have stability growing up. I was scared all the time. I felt like I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And by the time I was in seventh grade, I started playing basketball. Um, I had a glow up, and the girl that was being made fun of was all of a sudden the girl that was admired. The girls hated her. The boys were the same boys that made fun of me were like wanting me to pay attention to them, and I didn't know what to do with all of that. And so I still felt odd, but I will tell you, it felt a heck of a lot better than it did the other way. And that was something I never wanted to ever lose. And what ended up happening is, I believe before I touched the first drink of alcohol, I was already obsessive. If I could somehow escape, I escaped through making really, really good grades. I escaped through being a perfectionist and playing basketball and doing all of the things and whatnot. And by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was being sought after by high school coaches to come play basketball for their team and all of this. And then started high school. I was a player that played quite a bit of basketball. I was the president of the Latin club. I was all of the things, all of the things. Honor roll student, dated the same boy all through high school. I was the one who stayed out of trouble for the most part. I had my first good drunk when I was 14. One of the girls that I admired so much in high school that I was convinced would never be my friend. You know how we are. But it's a big deal when you have it and they come and spend the night at your house, And anyway, it was her idea to get into the liquor cabinet, and we got into the liquor cabinet. And I was certainly not going to tell her no, and I started drinking that drink that we made. It was a highball. Looking back, I know it was a highball. I didn't know it was a highball then. We just poured a bunch of liquor into a glass and drank it. And I knew when I saw that in my hand, and I heard another speaker say this, she said as soon as she saw that first beer that she ever drank, she knew intuitively that she was supposed to drink it as hard and as fast as she possibly could. And I saw that, and I knew, and I understood that. I identified with that when that speaker shared that. Um, and so that's what I did. And I got drunk, and all of a sudden, that fear, that need to breathe, all of that just released, and I felt better than I ever felt in my life. I was drunk for the first time, and I didn't care how I felt, didn't care who liked me or didn't like me. All of a sudden, I was right here in this present moment, and nothing else mattered. And I could breathe for the first time in my whole life. I was the kid. My mom burnt down 2 of our homes. Um, from what I'm told, she did it to be able to gain interest or insurance money to pay off the bills. She went bankrupt, and she did it twice. Like I said, that's hearsay, but that pretty people that were pretty close to our family, told us after she, ended up passing. I found these things out. But anyway, I get my first drink, and next thing you know, It was the best thing in the world. And I'll never forget that feeling. But I never did it again after that because I was too afraid of getting into trouble. My mom is, wild as she was very strict. And she made a deal with me. She said, as long as you stay out of trouble, as long as you don't make me look bad, and as long as you keep your grades up, you can have all the freedom you could ever want. And you don't make me worry about you, I'm not going to. But the minute you get into trouble and you give me a reason to worry about you, you're going nowhere and you're doing nothing. And she meant it. And so I stayed really, really busy. I was in church every time the doors were open. Again, I had the same boyfriend all through high school, and the kind of crowd I ran with never got into trouble. In fact, the popular kids were the ones who didn't get into trouble during my tenure at my high school. And it wasn't like that. I know it's not like that everywhere. Usually the popular kids are the ones that like to have a lot of fun, whatever. But this, for whatever reason, this wasn't my situation. So all through school, I stayed out of trouble. I was a good girl. By the time I graduated high school, I was homecoming queen. I was nominated for every senior superlative you could imagine. And I'm not saying all this to be braggy. I had a ton of friends who apparently really, really liked me, but I'm telling you, I still felt like the loneliest person on the planet. I had everything that every teenage girl could imagine being and wanting and aspiring to be. I was offered basketball scholarships. By the time I graduated, voted, all of the things, whatever. And still, I never felt good enough. I couldn't take it all in. I just didn't. And all of these friends that I had, but I never felt close to anybody. Because I was always so scared to see. What I know now about alcoholism is it's a disease of separation from power, from people. There's this thing that's inside of me that says I'm different no matter what. And if you really knew who I was, I automatically know you're not going to want anything to do with me. And so therefore, I'm going to protect myself. So therefore, I really don't want anything to do with you, because I'm going to beat you at your game that I made up in my head about you. And I don't know I'm living that way. I don't know how not to live that way. It's that is a way that I protect myself, and that's how I make it through life, on self-propulsion. Until I get to a point where those mechanisms don't work anymore. And when those very mechanisms hurt me so bad, the only thing that matters is getting rid of that feeling of aloneness and separation. And alcohol did that for me. When I had a few drinks, all of a sudden I could tolerate being around people. And that drinking started again once I went to the University of Tennessee. I live just outside of Knoxville. I'm in the Knoxville area right now. But I went to the University of Tennessee right out of high school. My plan was to continue with the whole good girl thing. I had no reason not to. I felt prepared. I had no reason to go party. I wasn't that kind of a person. And but I got to tell you, when I get to UT, and I'm hanging around these girls in sororities, and here I am, the country bumpkin with no money, and I'm there on Hope Scholar or Pell Grant and student loans, barely making it on the meal plan, and getting $100 a month from my brother to just be able to buy snacks for the month. And all these girls are inviting me along, and I can't pay my own way or whatever. I start using people to get the alcohol. And I remember that feeling of feeling so not good enough anymore. And they started getting the alcohol out. And I remember this one particular night, we were in our dorm. I asked one of my friends who was old enough to buy alcohol at the time. I was only 18. She was 21. And I asked her to buy us some alcohol, and she showed up with it, invited her along. And again, I poured a big highball. It was like half vodka, half Gatorade. And again, I knew I was supposed to drink it as hard and fast as I possibly could. And that's exactly what I did. And the next thing you know, within an hour and a half, we're out on the main drag at UT, where all the bars are, they're all trying to have a good time, and I'm passed out in the bathroom in one of the bars, and they're carting me back to the room, and they go out to have a good time. And within a little while, I'm throwing my guts up, saying, "How could I have done this? This is crazy. I'm never doing this again, ever, ever, ever. I should have just said no." Just like Nancy Reagan taught me growing up, this is just say no to drugs and alcohol. I'm never doing this again. This sucks. They were right. And then that starts to fade throughout the course of the day. That was a Friday night. Saturday morning, it starts to fade. And that day, Tennessee's getting ready to play Georgia. Interestingly enough, that's our next game that's coming up. We're playing Georgia Saturday. It's not going to be pretty, but they're going to beat us. But nonetheless, it's just funny how I'm telling this story. And anyway, we're getting ready to play Georgia that night. And all of a sudden, drinking again sounds like a good idea, because I think, you know what, I'm going to control it this time. I couldn't remember how bad it hurt even just a few hours ago. My mission in life became how I was going to get that next drink, because that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from having just a few. The problem is I have just a few. Something inside of me craves more and more and more and more and more, and I can't, and I don't stop. And I'm actually thinking I'm choosing to drink more when I'm not actually choosing to drink more. My mind tells me I'm in control, but the truth is I've triggered what is called the phenomenon of craving, the physical allergy that only exists in alcoholics. And it means that my body starts demanding more alcohol. And for me, it's almost like I'm gasping for air. The more I drink, the harder and the faster, the easier it goes down, the better it tastes, and the better I feel, until I fall off like a ski jump. I drank to blackout most of the time. Most of the time I drank to blackout. And so therefore I believe I was an alcoholic when I was 14. I just was able to go that long period of time without it because I was given sufficient enough reason. But I'm telling you, that freshman year in college, I fell off like a ski jump. The girl who never really failed anything ever, the homecoming queen, all of the stuff. I was on academic probation by the end of that first semester. I survived on promiscuity and booze. And I dumped the guy that I had been dating for 4 years because he confronted me on my drinking. And he said, "What are you doing? You're not the same person I know." And I said, "You're so judgmental. Get away from me, church boy." And I came up with every reason why I needed to go out and need to meet all these other guys, and then there's more big, there's other fish in the sea, this kind of thing, when I love this boy, and there was no reason why we shouldn't have stayed together and even gotten married. That was our plan. But it's amazing how that switch turned off in me. The minute you start fussing about my drinking, you're out. And what did I get to do on New Year's Eve of 1997? Went out with a few of my girlfriends. I said, "I'm done with guys. I just want to go have a good time with my girls. I've had enough of these boys and all this stuff." I had become everything I swore I wouldn't. When I say promiscuity and booze, that's putting it very lightly. I would sell my soul for that next drink and that next party and that feeling that came when I started drinking. And the next thing you know, the boys are paying attention to me, and that attention that I got, I would do anything for it. And so on New Year's Eve, like I said, that night, I wasn't planning on, I was done with the guys and all of that. I met the love of my life. Again, old enough guys able to buy underage girls alcohol. And we met up at an Applebee's over in Knoxville, and I am just there for the booze. The guy tagging along with the main guy who knew my friend, who, ended up being the best looking thing I'd ever seen in my life, and I was convinced would never speak to me. Well, I was wrong. He came and talked to me and told me he would, he started talking to me. And anyway, he was the man I ended up marrying. I met him that night, and I've pretty much been with him ever since. We waited a couple of months. We talked on the phone for a little while, but after that, I had arrived. I had a guy who drank more than I did, and I didn't feel so bad about myself. It was all I cared about. I didn't care about class anymore. I didn't care. All I wanted to do was party and be with him. And that was it. He was in the military. He was 4 years older than me. He was so good looking, the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. He had parents that were married to each other for like ever. He had a house that never burnt down. He had brothers that got along with him. He had everything I wanted. I mean, he had the family, he had it all. And he could control and enjoy his drinking. And at least at the time. And oh my God, I flunked out of UT, had to move back in with my mother, and begged the community college that offered me a basketball scholarship to let me come back. You know, I didn't know that I probably could have played basketball for them again, but I thought that because I had told them I didn't want to play anymore, that and because I messed up so bad at UT, I didn't deserve anything any better. But anyway, I went back to community college that following fall. I was living with my mom, completely ashamed of myself, felt like a total loser, couldn't hardly make it to work, couldn't hardly make the class on time, running around like my hair's on fire, completely disrespecting her rules, despite the fact that she took care of me. My God, the woman. And on October 13th of 1998, I woke up one morning with my hair on fire, throwing on my clothes, trying to get to class on time. I believe I may have had a test or something. And I'm in the bathroom trying to slap myself together, and my mom comes in. She was a very prominent real estate agent, and she had picked herself up from her bootstraps. She had been in a very abusive marriage for a while, and got away from this guy, and got on her feet financially, finally. And she had on a cool outfit, and she comes in and asks me how it looks on her. Does this make me look fat or whatever? You know how we women do. And I'm just like, Mom, you're beautiful. Leave me alone. I'm in a hurry. I got to go. You're fine. You always do this. You're beautiful. That just rude. The woman was just trying to be with her daughter, you know, and she made a lot of mistakes, but you know, she didn't deserve the way I treated her for sure. Anyway, grab my stuff. I'm headed out the house, and I get to the storm door, this glass storm door. And as I start to push it open, something inside of me stops me for what felt like an eternity. It had to have only been maybe a few seconds, but it felt like time stopped. And at that time, my mom yells out at me and says, "Hey, I love you. Be careful. Have a good day," something along those lines. And I'm so just can't do better. If I wanted to, if I couldn't do better even if I wanted to. Didn't know how to be better, but something inside said, "Tell your mother you love her. Tell her you love her." And I almost did. But then no, I was just so mad, and I took everything that I hated about myself out on her. I see now that's what I did. And I said, "Whatever." Something rude, probably said a bad word. I don't know. But it was basically, F you, Mom, for loving me. Ran out the door, got to class. 2 hours later, I'm being picked up by the police, and I'm being taken to the sheriff's office in downtown Kingston. It was October 13th of 1998. I still remember looking down at the ground and seeing water run down the ground, and it was a beautiful October day. The sun was shining, it was crisp. And I remember thinking, why am I being taken to by the police to the sheriff's office, which was also combined with the fire hall because it's a very small town. And I get in there, and all these people that I know are there, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? I thought, what have I done now? You know, of course, it's about me, I'm thinking. But then I thought, well, maybe something bad happened to a family member. I don't know. I didn't know what was going on. And then the next thing you know, my brother comes around the corner, pulls me inside and says, your mom has been shot. Larry shot her. He killed her. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it's like after that, I was underwater and I couldn't breathe. I could hear people talking, but I didn't know what was going on. And that sounds really, really dramatic. And it was traumatic. It was horrible. But the last words I said to my mother was what I just told you. And that thing inside of me tried to get me to not live a life of regret. And I came to find out that fast forward on 10 years later, I end up finding that same voice deep down inside of me was there my whole life taking care of me. But I snuffed it out more and more with booze and all of the things I did to try to survive and be better, but couldn't. After she died, I moved in with my granny. I lived with her for a while. I poured myself into school because that's what I do when I hurt. All I did was go to school. At that time, the guy that I was dating, the beautiful man that I ended up marrying, he was in a military training exercise, and he found out about it after I told him. He was only there 3 days when it happened, and I told him about it. He went and cried and talked to the chaplain on the Air Force Base because he didn't know what else to do, and he said he knew from that moment forward he was put on this earth to take care of me. The God of my understanding was working in my life long before I ever knew I needed him or much less wanted him. And so anyway, after he gets through the training, we get engaged. We spend another year or whatever, and we get married in 1999. We were married for about a year. I'm doing all of the things that I was doing in college, and only I was doing it with him. We were running and gunning. We were hanging out with some really rough people, and I needed to change so bad, and he ended up getting a pilot slot in the U.S. Air Force. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then this was going to be our new start. I wasn't going to do this anymore. I was going to change. It was my first geographic. I didn't know it was a geographic, but it just kind of worked out that way. We went out to Texas for a year for his pilot training. I made a vow that I was going to be different. And within a few hours of driving on the road, we were stopping, we were drinking. And then I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I can't be this. My husband's an officer in the Air Force. I can't behave the way that I have. I can't be an embarrassment to him. And we get there. We start hanging out with the guys and the officers and all of that. Guess what I do? I become an embarrassment to my husband again. I start drinking. I'm planning on having a few. Next thing you know, I start getting that kind of buzzed, tipsy feeling. I can't stop. Once I start, allergies triggered. Might as well get good and drunk. I'm dancing on the bars in Mexico, and that's what I do. I'm the life of the party, and all the guys. I love always hanging out with the guys and doing all that. And the next thing you know, I am pregnant, and I'm able to stop drinking. Thank you, God. I'm able to stop the cigarettes and all of the stuff. Thank you, God. But when you take the alcohol away from me, I'm paranoid, and I didn't know this was why. I thought I was just hormonal. But you take the alcohol away from me, I am miserable. I'm paranoid. I'm shutting the curtains. I don't want to be around anybody. And this life growing inside of me, I'm not very happy about. And anyway, I end up having the baby there in Del Rio, Texas. We moved back to Tennessee. We decide we want to move to Charleston, South Carolina. And we get in the Air Force Reserves there. My husband learns to fly the C-17. We're living in Charleston. This is around 2005. We have our second child, and by this time I figure I need to start being a real adult and I need some real friends. So I start going back to church because maybe those people are going to be nice and decent people for me to hang out with so I can be a responsible human. But there was something on the inside of me that said that no matter what, you're going to end up just like your dad. My dad, I had quit drinking for quite a while, and he had gotten his life turned around for quite a while, and he didn't do AA or anything like that. But after my mom divorced him, he burned his life to the ground and was running from the law for the rest of his life because of the kinds of things that he did. And I knew something inside of me knew I was going to be that way. And if not that, I was going to be the rageful human that he was because I had a temper on me like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, I started going to church, and then the next thing you know, I'm praying. I'm having all these experiences I can't explain. It felt like every time I would go into a service, people, the things were talking directly to me. It was weird. And then the next thing you know, my then son, who was 5 or 6 years old, my husband at this time is flying C-17s in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq. He's gone for weeks at a time, and it's just me and the kids, and and I knew that if I started drinking, then I could guarantee you I probably wouldn't be able to stop when I was supposed to. So I wouldn't drink, and oh my God, the pressure that would build up was just like it was when I was pregnant. I couldn't stand being around people, and everything felt like a chore. And no matter what I tried, medication, church, religion, fitness, money, didn't have to work, job, no job, whatever, nothing made me comfortable. Nothing. And I longed for the day of when I got the opportunity to drink the way I used to. I could just breathe. When these kids get out, whatever, I just was waiting for that next drink, it felt like. Anyway, one night, this was after I had spent a few days looking for a Mother's Morning Out program at the different churches around where I lived. And at one particular church, I got invited to attend the service or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I kid you not, within a day of being there or whatever, I'm up in my son's bedroom. He's not doing what he's supposed to do, like a 6-year-old does. And rather than, because I'm incapable of being a parent, I don't know, the best I could do most of the time was strap my kids in a high chair, put them in a playpen so I could go outside and smoke cigarettes and breathe, because I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to be a mom. It never made sense. I'm just trying to keep them alive and not be mean, but I couldn't help but be mean. Anyway, this kid, God love him, he's 22 years old now. Does something, he disobeys, I don't know, I'll lose it on him. I scream at him to get his attention. I yank the cute little guitar. It's an electric guitar, toy electric guitar, out of his hands. His favorite toy. Grab it on purpose and bust it over my leg just to get his attention. He screams in terror and big tears coming out of his eyes. And he says, "You are mean. You are so mean, Mom. Why are you so mean?" And it was like I had what the best I can describe as a white light experience. And I literally fell on my knees. And I said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm so mean. God, you got to help me. I am scared of what I'm capable of. And in that moment, I saw the abusive alcoholic father that beat me so hard one night that I collapsed and wet myself, and it took my mother pulling him off of me because I couldn't feel my legs I couldn't feel myself from the waist down. He was hitting me so hard. And I could feel that rage welling up in me. And I said, God, help me. I don't know what to do. And I knew that if I shared what was in my head and what was in my heart with anybody, they would lock me up. And I almost welcomed the idea, because by then, every morning I woke up, even though I had everything in the world to live for. The minivan, I was tall, thin, blonde, 2 beautiful, gorgeous boys, a beautiful husband who loved me and was faithful to me. Everything material that I needed, a beautiful home, 10 minutes from the Isle of Palms, the minivan. And what I wouldn't give to crash that minivan into a palm tree or drive it over the Cooper River Bridge and make it look like an accident. But I couldn't do it because I had those boys in the car. And I begged God for help. Please change me, do something, help. And a few days later, I ended up going and I ended up visiting a church there in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. It was the same one that had the Mother's Morning Out program, and ended up deciding to take my kids to. And I'm wanting to sit in the back. This place is packed. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know. I'd given up on church, and I was just there because I didn't know where else to go. And the same little boy who I broke his guitar was sitting next to me, and he kept wanting to sit up front, would not stop, asking me to move to the front of the church. And I'm like, you know what, God, I'm going to put my hand in this little boy's hand, and I'm just going to ask you to put me where you want me, because there are no seats nowhere. We end up standing up walking to the front. And by the time I stand up and start walking, everybody else sits down. And there I am again with my little boy. And the next thing you know, I'm able to see 2 seats open right up front. We sit down, church service. I cry the whole time. The guy's picking on me. He's asking me if I'm okay. And I keep trying to blow him off because it felt like he was like trying to hit on me or something. At least that's what I thought. I'm that arrogant. My little boy goes on to Sunday school or whatever that was. And then this guy keeps asking me if I'm okay. And I'm like, I'm going to shut this guy up, get him to leave me alone. And so I just dump on him. I tell him, my husband's drinking so much, and my mom was murdered, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I da da da. Trying to scare him off, and he says, hold on a minute. By this time, the service ended, and there was a lady that he pointed out to. He said, I want you to talk to that lady after this meeting's over. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm thinking, get me out of here. I want out of here. But because I was at the front of the church, I couldn't leave. If I was in the back, I could have skated out. But no, I was trapped. And at the end of the service, the people still on that pew, they were very warm and welcoming. The same guy was very warm and welcoming. And they said, do you like the service? I'm like, sure, whatever. And then one of the guys was like, he had this glow about his face and his eyes or something about him. He said, do you believe God puts people in your life for a reason? And it struck me because I'd been praying and having all these things happen that just did not make sense. But when I would pray, things would happen and I didn't understand. And I just knew when he asked me that. And I said, yeah, I think so. I don't know why I said that to this perfect stranger, but yeah, I think so. Crowd disperses. I get my kid. I run out to the car. I'm getting in the minivan. And I remember looking up to the sky and saying, well, God, I guess I'm not supposed to talk to that woman he wanted me to talk to. I no longer get the words out of my mouth. And that woman rocks in an empty parking lot and right in front of my van. Out of nowhere, there she is. I look up and I'm like, oh my God, it's what do I do? And I feel inside of me that same voice that says, tell your mom you love her. That same familiar voice says to me, what have you got to lose? And I find myself running out of that minivan and chasing her down. And I said, hey, look, you don't know me. I don't know you. And I know I look like a crazy lady, but something inside of me is telling me I need to talk to you. And this dude sitting next to me said I needed to talk to you. And I'm just here. Well, what's going on, honey? Well, my husband's drinking too much. Because I could go long periods of time without drinking. I wasn't the problem. It was my husband who would come home from his deployments and he would drink. And you know what? I was mad because I couldn't. And wanted to real bad, but somebody has to stay sober for these children, and shame on you for drinking, right? Anyway, I'm telling her these things and she says, honey, well, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous and have been for about 23 years. And those people that pointed you out, they're all members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got to tell you, I was introduced to a member on that pew who was a grateful member of Al-Anon. She was also an alcoholic, but she was an Al-Anon. And I thought I was just an Al-Anon. I came in and thank God for Al-Anon. Thank God for AA. Thank God for all 12-step recovery. And thank God for people who are willing, no matter where, anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, that hand of recovery is there reaching out. Because that's what happened to me that day. And so I got introduced to this girl from Al-Anon, and she hands me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she's sponsoring me in Al-Anon at the time. She says, here, learn about your husband's disease. And I'm like, fine, right on, I'm going to fix it. I want to learn about his disease, all right. I'm going to show him. I start reading the doctor's opinion. I start reading Bill's story. I start reading more about alcohol agnostics and all the stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. I drank like this. I know how this feels. I know what it feels like, that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from a few drinks. Oh, I know pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Oh, I know those hideous 4 horsemen: terror, frustration, bewilderment, and despair. And I know, and when I'm reading to wives, because at the time I'm in Al-Anon, I'm reading to wives, I'm like, yeah, I feel this way toward my husband, but my God, I've drank like this guy. wait a minute. On page 44, when it says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit drinking entirely, or you have little control over the amount you take, that means you're probably an alcoholic, which means you're suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. I was like, wait a minute. I need a drink to read and understand this. I kid you not. I'm reading the big book, drinking, just so my mind will shut down long enough so I can understand it. I didn't know those were traits of an alcoholic. And I started reading this, and then I finally mustered up enough courage to ask her, the one who she's an Al-Anon, she's also an alcoholic. And I said, how did you know you were an alcoholic? And she said, I couldn't stop at the buzz tipsy feeling. And I knew what that felt like, that when the face is numb and you're ready to go and you're feeling good. And I just wanted to stay right there, but I couldn't. I'd get more. It was more. And next thing you know, I don't know what happens after that. But see, I never had a DUI. I never gone to jail. I never been in real trouble. I didn't have people coming after me telling me I had a drinking problem anymore, because I could go periods of time without drinking. But my God, when I did start drinking, I could not guarantee you that I could stop once I started. My husband and I celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary, and I was planning on not drinking, and until the day we were supposed to have our, the day of the event, I said, well, maybe we should get a limo, because I'm not going to drink, but let's get a limo. Back in my mind, I'm like, well, what if I drink? And then we get to the steakhouse, and it's like, they're giving free champagne. I'm not going to drink it, because I want to be able to remember this 8th wedding anniversary. It's kind of a big deal. And then before I get up to the stairs to our table, I'd already decided, okay, just one glass of champagne. That's not going to hurt me. And it doesn't hurt you, a normal person. I get the one glass of champagne, and I'm telling hey, let's get another bottle. My husband hates champagne. I'm like, well, that's fine. We'll get you a bottle of wine. I'm drinking all the champagne, half his bottle. We're in the limo going back home, stopping at the beer store for more. I'm throwing up in the limousine in a wine bucket. No, I don't have a problem. It's just my anniversary. It's kind of a big deal. After I promised myself for months I'm not going to do it, right? Something happens, and I can't stop once I start, and I can't ignore that thought that comes into my head. You can control it this time, because I will believe it. I will believe it every time, left to my own devices without spiritual help. And so I asked her, and then I said, well, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I don't have all these consequences these people in AA are talking about. I mean, I know what it's like to want to die and be miserable spiritually, but I just don't know. And I didn't. I wasn't trying to hide. I wasn't. And she said, well, you can try some controlled drinking. Now, this is just my experience. I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and do this, but it is in the literature. It is in the big book. And it says it's worth a bad case of the jitters to truly understand the seriousness of your condition. That is just what happened to me. Do what people are comfortable with, But that's what I did. I tried it more than once. One of the times I tried pouring me a glass of wine at lunch. I was going to drink the same amount of alcohol every day for about 2 weeks. And if I could do that consistently, I was probably not an alcoholic. I tried it once. I was going to have 6 ounces. The minute I start pouring, I'd move it to 8. The next thing you know, let's have 2 glasses. Boom, bottle gone. Okay, so I'm going to try it again. And the next thing I tried again, and I fail again. And my sponsor, she says, oh, by the way, you failed. And I'm like, I don't fail anything. How dare you tell me that? And then my last drink was so pathetic. It was I'm going to read the big book, and I need another drink to understand the big book. Was gin and like Diet 7-Up on the front porch. It was like so boring and so pathetic, but I was done. It was so pathetic. And I was on the phone with my sponsor drinking, and I was just like, okay. I went the third white chip I picked up on the 10-year anniversary of my mother's murder on October 13th of 2008. I did not plan that, y'all. I was not an alcoholic. I was not. It happened to fall on that day. I didn't even know, really. But I will tell you that years subsequent to my mom's murder, every year that became a very, very, very dark time. It was a time to grieve. It was a time to feel sorry for myself and to blame and hate my life. And it was a wonderful excuse to milk sympathy and garner attention, because it's all I knew to do to survive. You tell people your mother's murder, no, the next thing you know, people are petting you and saying, it's okay, honey. No wonder you're so messed up. And I could blame my whole life on that situation. It was very convenient. That's how selfish and self-centered I am. I was still using my mother even in her death. You know, and the good thing is I get to share this kind of stuff. And every time I get to share it, I'm healed a little bit more. Because I will tell you right now, before I forget to get this out, there isn't a day that goes by, there isn't a time that I get off the phone that I don't tell my loved ones that I love them. Even when I'm mad at them, I've tried to leave the house mad at my husband. I want to show him, or he'll leave without, and I'm calling, hey, I love you. I left the house. I know we're mad. We can talk about it later. I'm really not that mad. I love you. I don't want to leave the house without saying so. And they know why. Anyway, if nobody learns, if anyone learns anything at all from this talk, please let your people know you love them. You don't want to live with that kind of regret that I've had for the last nearly 30 years. So I surrender. I go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with that same sponsor that was on that church pew. And she's barely sober herself. We eke through it. I do the best I can through the steps. I'm helping people. I'm keeping commitments. I have a home group. I'm doing my best to sponsor people. I'm making amends, and I'm doing the things. And the coolest thing is I gave my will and life over to the care of that thing that told me to tell my mom she loved me. The thing that took me to that church pew full of Alcoholics Anonymous people. That thing that kept making all those big things happen when I would pray. The thing that when I'm on my knees in the middle of the kitchen and I'm hearing those 12-step promises being shared in meetings, and I'm begging God on my knees, when are these promises going to happen for me? That same little boy that I prayed for out of nowhere goes to a bookcase that I hadn't opened in forever, and out of nowhere grabs this little book, and I don't even know what's going on, but because I had my head down and I'm praying and I feel this thud on the top of my head, that same little boy took a book out of that bookcase and I dropped it on my head while I'm praying and asking, when are these promises are going to come true for me? I'm doing the work. God, help me. I'm miserable still, and I'm trying to stay sober. My husband continues to drink. All of these things. That book, I will pick it up and look at it, and the title of that book is The Promise of God's Power. Is written on it. The power. The 12 steps enable us access to power to live. I needed power to live. Where and how was I to find that power? Thank God for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That power is deep down inside of me, because in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. Sometimes we have to search fearlessly, but when we do, we find that He is there and is the only place I could be found. And I knew that when I was praying that day that God of my understanding had me, and He knew I was in pain, but I kept going because I had nowhere else to go. Thank God I had nowhere else to go. Thank God for alcoholism, because it has absolutely given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, better than anything I could have ever hoped to expect. And the central fact of my life today is, like our literature says, that there is a God that has entered into my heart and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous. One of the things that I will share with you that is so important is my story is a story of forgiveness. I've hated myself for so long for all of my selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear, and the way I've treated people and the way I treated myself and I especially hated the man who killed my mother. And part of going through the steps, seeing my part in things in step 4, and then being able to talk about that with another alcoholic in step 5, and truly seeing the nature of what was driving me to behave the way that I did, and knowing that I absolutely had no power to change into a different person myself, that I needed the power of a greater than me to change me. But in order for that to happen, I had to take certain actions that meant for me to make amends to people I had harmed. And I became willing to make amends to those people because I needed to change and I didn't want to drink again. And I needed to be free of resentment. And he was my number one resentment. And I was instructed to write him an honest letter because he was in prison for the rest of his life for what he did. And I was instructed to pray for him, and I started praying for him. And the next thing you know, that's like, Shanna, how many times should you have killed somebody with all your drunk driving and you never did? How many times in your fits of rage should you have probably killed somebody? Oh, and by the way, did you not know? And you remember how you were told that he was a heavy, heavy drinker. He had quit for a while. And then when your mama divorced him, he started drinking again and he went off his meds. But for the grace of God, there go I. In step 4, I'm told that I'm to pray the sick man prayer because they, like ourselves, are sick too. How am I like this guy? What he did was more harmful to me than what I did to him. But I got to tell you, my relationship with him prior to all of that happening, I was very selfish. I only used him for what he could give me. Had he still been alive today and everything been normal and just divorced, I'd have had to have gone to make amends to him for how I treated him, regardless of what he did to my mother. And so what ended up happening is I wrote him a letter, and the letter just simply said, Larry, I forgive you. I'm sorry you're in pain, because you know what? If I would have killed somebody the way he did, I couldn't imagine living the rest of my life knowing I'd done that. So put myself in his shoes. This is the kind of power that happens. There's no way I can muster this stuff up on my own. But because of the power of this program, I had the courage to write this letter. He wrote me an honest letter back. A couple of weeks later, I get this in the mail. This is what I had to go get before the podcast started. It's a Thomas Kincaid card, and he wrote me back. And he says, he wrote in handwritten calligraphy the devotional he was doing the day he received my letter. And this was the handwritten note that he gave me. I tore a piece off of it because I think I needed to write down somebody's phone number somewhere. But it's dated March 30th of 2010. It said, Dear Shanna, I received your note a few days ago, and I was really surprised to hear from you. But I was also very happy that you had written. I do know that without God in your heart, no one could do what you did, and I'm so thankful you forgave me. I'm so sorry for what happened in the past. Thank you for your note and for your forgiveness. I hope you like the card. The text was taken from one of the daily devotions dated the day I received your note. Take care. May God bless and keep you is my prayer. What I learned that day is the same God that I'd been praying to had already forgiven him before my letter arrived. Based on the fact that everything in this devotion is talking all about forgiveness and letting go of the past and moving forward, and how God forgives us no matter what. And if God can forgive this man for murdering my mother, then maybe he could forgive me. And you know what else I saw? When I was willing to forgive him and write him and let him know, what I was doing was giving him the opportunity to say he was sorry. There's not been a single person that's done that since he did what he did, since he killed her. And on that day, we were both set free. I was set free of the resentment that was killing me, and he got to experience the love of his creator. And what's interesting is last day I saw him, I was passing by him in the driveway, and he and Mom had just had a fight, and he made threats to my mom that night. And I looked him in the eye and I said, please don't hurt my mom. He said I would never hurt her. Well, he did. He got to apologize for what he did. Amends have been the meat and potatoes of this thing for me. I can't tell you how many amazing things have happened as the result of being able to make amends. You know, people that I hadn't seen in decades, not knowing where they were, dead or alive. I was told to pray for them. They'd show up out of nowhere, and I'm able to make amends right there on the spot. I've done it in department stores. I've done it in fitness centers, things like that. It's been a financial amends just out of nowhere. Amazing. One of the coolest amends I got to make most recently. And interestingly enough, it was a girl that I just recently started sponsoring. I started working with her, and right around the time I started working with her, I needed to make amends to a local grocery store from where I used to steal food when I was a tiny kid. This was close to 40 years ago that I did this. The grocery store doesn't even exist anymore, but I prayed and I followed the directions. And I did what I needed to do. And when I asked what I could do to make it right, they took my money, scanned my shopper card. It was $14 worth. And they said, never come back in this store again. And I'm like, oh my God, I always come to this store. What am I going to do? Oh my God, it makes no sense whatsoever. My sponsor said, God has a plan. And so a couple of days later, I'm on the phone with the sponsee and I'm telling her about what happened. And she said, oh my God, I'm literally within days of making amends to that same grocery store chain for stealing. The girl's pregnant. If they're willing to ban me from the way they did me for $14, her theft was a lot more, and she's pregnant. She's got a family to think about. Me going through that thing that doesn't make sense was healing for me because it gives me the opportunity to practice integrity. But it let her see that God was taking care of her. When we say that when we're sponsoring people, they help us more than we help them, it's absolutely the truth. And I just had another 12-step experience as a result of living in 10, 11, 12. I'm continuing to take personal inventory. I'm keeping my commitments. I keep doing the thing. What I'm like now is I'm a happy, joyous, and free person, reasonably happy, I should say. Not everything is always sunshine and rainbows. Life is life, and life is in session, and it comes at us, and thank God it does. It gives me the opportunity to grow. I get to be sad. I get to grieve. I get to be different, and it's never going to stop, and I never have to drink again. Neither one of my boys have seen me drunk. Oh, they've never seen me drink. And just this past weekend, I'm on my knees praying before I leave to go to a trip to see my sponsor who lives in Jacksonville, Florida, the wonderful, well, I won't give her name. But anyway, she's a blessing to me, and I was going to visit her. And last minute, my dog gets sick, and I'm on my knees praying. I'm like, God, what do I do? What do I do? How can I best, whatever you want me to do, wherever I can be the most helpful, just show me, please. I'm on my knees. In the middle of that phone call, I get a call from my sponsor. Hey, are you on the road yet? And I'm like, no. Well, good, because I've got a job for you when you get here. There's a girl in desperate need of help, and you need a 12-stepper. And I felt in that moment, that same voice, that same thing that told me, tell your mom you love her. What else do you got to lose? Said, put your little doggy in my hands. I go, a 12-stepper. I got a new sponsee, and I come back, and my dog is completely normal. One last thing, one more amend. The same little boy whose guitar I broke when he was turning 16, I went and asked him what he wanted for his 16th birthday about 3 days prior. And see, about a week or two prior to that event of me busting his guitar came to my mind so many times. I talked it over with my sponsor. She kept telling me to pray about it and be willing to make amends. However it showed up, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. And he had no recollection of the incident whatsoever. He had no idea. He had no idea I was even praying about nothing. I asked him what he wanted. He wanted a brand new electric guitar. I got to go out and buy him a brand new I got an electric guitar. That was exactly what he wanted. I could spend another 30 minutes talking about all the God shots that showed up and leading me to the perfect guitar for him. I mean, I'm talking the same brand and color and everything that was in his heart. And see, I get to share this kind of stuff. And that's the stuff that makes me willing to believe when I hear stuff like this happening, because it's so much bigger than me just not drinking. If oh my God, if I could pick out the life that I want, I would have sold myself short. I used to hear people say that and thought they were crazy. But because of this program, the ability to surrender and to do things different than I would do and rely on a power greater than myself and be willing to help other alcoholics, I get to experience these kinds of things that keep me coming back. I don't find it necessary to pick up a drink. I actually love people, and I just get to relax most of the time and take it easy and just be helpful and show up. So grateful to be here. So grateful for the opportunity. And I hope there are any newcomers out there that that you are absolutely welcome. Just show up and willing. If you're hurting, just show up. That's it.
Wow. That's amazing, Shanna. And thank you so much for sharing your story. but I can't let you go without us doing our rapid fire questions. No
Oh.
pressure. You thought you were going to get away with it? You are not. But I will say your story is really moving, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share it. All right, but if you are ready, we will go at it. So, what is your favorite recovery slogan?
I don't know if it's a slogan, but I will tell you that my favorite, the thing that got me through the hardest part of my recovery was page 100. It's in page 100 in Working with Others. You and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. You will suddenly realize that when we put ourselves in God's hands, something like better than any things turn out better than anything we could have planned. The things that came to us were better than anything we could have planned. And it says to follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. Page 100, it's that first full paragraph. But that's my favorite. If I had to, it's the first thing that pops. It's what carried me through that first 2 years of sobriety when my world was falling apart.
So, what's your least favorite recovery slogan?
Meeting makers make it. Then I'll tell you why. Meeting makers do make it, and they make it to meetings. And thank God if they make it to meetings, there are people there to share the solution with them and take them through the steps so they can have that spiritual experience. But for me to just make it to meetings, I miss out. I eventually dry up and want to drink again. I did that for a little bit.
What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
I think just because I'm such a black and white kind of thinker, the directions in the big book, I mean, if I follow those directions, thankfully I'm reminded that is surrender. So if I have clear directions to follow, I'm at least willing to follow directions. Thank God. That helps.
Yeah. If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
Oh, honey, it gets better. Hang in there.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
There's a lot of them. But just to be fun and not so serious, I crank up Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith.
Nice. If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
One wish to help with my recovery. Less fear. Just I still struggle a lot with fear, and more ability to just hold my nose and jump and trust.
What step do you love the most?
My ego wants to say 6 and 7 because that would separate me from the men from the boys, right? I have found that steps 6 and 7 are the most painful for me, but have absolutely been the most transformative. They do hurt. A lot of it is because there's no fanfare around them. There's no tangibles. It's just getting to the understanding that I absolutely have no power to be any different than what I am right now. And either God's going to use it and change it or whatever. But I feel like I have my hands tied behind my back, and that inadvertently causes me to be willing to change and make amends and do what I need to do. So I would say probably 6 and 7, even though they're rough. I can't hear you. You're
Oh,
muted.
I do that every time. I swear, I almost told you at the beginning. I do that every time.
Yeah.
What step do you love the least?
6 and 7. No. Oh. Yeah. What step do I love the least? That's a hard one. Um, I would say probably step 12 only because my brain tells me that you don't need to do that. Just it's okay. And because I forget the
Mm,
sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from helping somebody else.
yeah.
And then once I take the action because the pain, the gift of desperation I've been given, I don't want to drink. I start helping another alcoholic and I remember, oh yeah, this is why we do that. So I don't hate any of them.
What is one of your favorite movies?
Oh, We're the Millers with Jennifer Aniston and Jason Sudeikis. Oh my gosh, that's the funniest thing ever. I laugh so hard.
That's a good one. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I'm about to cry. You did good, kid.
That would definitely be nice. But Shanna, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. I know that you've brought a lot of hope to people, and it means a lot. And for the rest of you out there, please subscribe to our friends at thedailyponderables.com, your recovery source for inspiration and encouragement every day. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show is released every Thursday at noon. Visit thecupofjoeshow.net, where you can listen to the show on your favorite podcast apps, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and others. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." Please like, follow, subscribe, and share, because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Thank you.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.